Glen rolled over and opened his eyes. The smoke was everywhere, way too much of it to be coming from a cigarette. He sat bolt upright in bed. The smoke was coming from the hall, billowing into his room like steam from a sauna. The house was on fire. Glen gasped in shock and accidentally took in a big mouthful of that smoke. It caught in his throat and he started coughing, hacking just like the way Dad used to. Smoker's cough, that's why you have to quit, Dad, that's why. Glen couldn't catch his breath. He couldn't stop coughing. Could barely even think over the sound and roar of the fire coming from out the hall. His eyes teared up. What do I do? Oh God, what do I do? I don't want to die. He was just a kid. Kids weren't supposed to die like this. Except they did all the time. He'd seen it in the news more than one time. The last a couple of weeks ago when the girl up in Alpine had been in the bath by herself, hit her head on a faucet, drowned while her mum was in the kitchen baking cookies. It happened, but not to him. Please, not to me. I don't want to die. I don't know what to do. Don't panic. Get low to the ground. Find an exit. Glen heard Miss Prescott's voice in his head as clear as if she was standing right next to him, whispering into his ear. Mrs. Prescott was his second-grade teacher at Martha Elementary, where they used to have fire drills once a month. They weren't serious fire drills, that's what Mark said anyway. In 5th grade they had serious fire drills, but they always made Glen a little nervous anyway. The big alarm bell clanging, Mrs. Prescott leading them down the hall in single file, being strict about the no-talking rule, and always asking one of them what they would do if they were in a real fire. Sometimes the kid she asked had the answer. Sometimes he didn't. But Mrs. Prescott always repeated her saying anyway. Don't panic, get low to the ground, find an exit. Don't panic. Okay, he wasn't panicking anyway, right? So that was one taken care of. Number 2, get low to the ground. Glen rolled out the bed, right onto the floor, slammed into it so hard the night table next to his bed bounced. His vision blurred for a second. It didn't hurt a bit though. There was a dirty t-shirt on the floor next to him. He remembered something else from that fire drill all at once, and picked up the shirt. He wrapped it around his mouth and nose like an old cowboy bandit. It helped block the smoke, helped him breathe a little better. Okay, 1 and 2 done, now number 3, find an exit. The window, Glen thought, the window behind him. He started crawling towards it, dragging himself along the floor, digging in with his elbows, pulling himself along, leaving dark red streaks in the dirty beige carpet as he moved. Blood. He'd hurt himself falling off the bed. So what? The sight of blood didn't bother him. He had a total disconnect from blood. A total disconnect from pain. Those things were just words to him. When Glen Callaway got hurt, he never felt anything. He reached the window, grabbed the sill, and pulled himself up. The fire was in his room now. He could tell because the smoke was getting darker and thicker. It was getting hard to breathe again without coughing. The window wouldn't budge. Glen would have to break it. Mom wouldn't like that, but... Glen's hands fell away from the window. Mom, Dad, Mark. Were they upstairs now? Were they trapped in the house? He spun around, looking for the red lights of the alarm clock at his bed. Maybe Mom and Dad had gone out. They'd started doing that these last couple of weeks. Going out like a couple, letting Mark and him stay at home alone by themselves. His mom said Mark was old enough to be responsible, so if it was still early, maybe they were... Glen's eyes found a clock on the wall. 1:30. His stomach sank. Even if they'd gone out before, they were home now. Everyone was home. But maybe they'd gotten out already. Maybe they were waiting for him right outside his window. Maybe. No, they hadn't gotten out. Glen knew that for a fact. No way any of them could have left him up here to burn up. They were upstairs. His heart sank. It was up to him, Glen realized. He had to wake the others. He had to get them out. Don't panic. Stay low. Find an exit. No, he whispered. I have to find my family. He turned around and looked into the heart of the fire. It was in his room now, burning up the side of one wall, burning his posters. There went Nolan Ryan, and Danny White, and Darth Vader, And one leg of his dresser was on fire too. But more importantly, the whole door frame was outlined in flames. And beyond it, the main room where they held services looked like one of those pictures of hell the deacon was always pointing out to them in Bible school. Big red and orange tongues of fire. Beyond the big room, he saw the staircase leading up to the second floor was burning too. Find an exit. Shut up, Mrs. Prescott, Glenn thought to himself. Just shut up. He took a deep breath and ran, straight through the door, straight through the main room, past the burning old upright piano, the stacks of folding wooden chairs that were now stacks of flame, past the bookcases full of songbooks and Bibles, and out into the hallway, to the base of the stairs, and he looked down at his right arm. His pajamas were on fire. Heck, his pajamas were just about gone. He was really the one on fire. The skin was singed and black. Glenn, of course, didn't feel a thing. Glenn had a disease. Doctors had a fancy name for it. He couldn't remember the name now, but what it meant was he couldn't feel any pain. Even at this moment, with his arm on fire, he couldn't feel anything. He sure could smell it though. His stomach rolled over. Don't think about it, Glenn told himself. Don't think about... He slapped at his right arm with his left hand, trying to put out the flame. The burned skin slid off like the crusted over cheese on pizza, and underneath, Glenn's stomach heaved, and he ripped the t-shirt away from his face before he threw up on the floor. His head was spinning. His throat was raw. He had to sit down for a second. Don't panic. Stay low. Find an exit. Maybe Mrs. Prescott was right. The front door, he thought, and lifted his head, and blinked again to clear his vision. The smoke was pretty bad down here now, and turned to his left. And there it was, the front door, not 10 feet away from him, standing wide open. Why? Why was the front door open? He tried to think of a reason, but failed. He looked straight ahead at the flaming drywall. He looked to his right at the staircase, which was now a wall of flame. He started to cry. "Mom," he whispered. "Dad." He saw the flames around him and the smoke spreading, and he knew it was supposed to hurt, but it didn't. He felt himself coughing and struggling, but there was no pain. He felt at peace there, at home among the devastation. His vision blurred again, and all at once he was lying on the floor, looking up at the stairs, and then the stairs were gone, faded to black. And then the wall in front of him started to fade too, and he turned his head and looked down the hall, at the front door, his exit. But he wasn't going to make it. None of them were. The fire was going to get them all. At that second, he heard Mum's voice in his head. "Fire," she said. "The Kane family curse." No, Glenn thought. That was crazy talk. And yet, here he was, dying, the fire raging around him. Glenn saw the front door before him again, wide open. He tried one last time to get up. He failed. He burned.